So we'll call the finance meeting to order at 7 o'clock on September 20th. All members present, city manager and city auditor. Before we start, any questions? Okay, so we're going to work on the budget for next year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Taylor.
Thank you, Councilman Clement. Everybody on the committee received what we're calling the first draft of the expense budget. You have the first draft of the revenue expectations, showing that these numbers are possible and relevant. And these numbers were sent to department heads, discussed at length, and generated in such a way that to meet both the departmental needs and combined, be able to fit realistically within the revenue expectations. And they're broken out by line for it. So I don't have a ton of presentation for these numbers other than to say that they're similar to 2022. They build on expansion of investment and across pretty much all departments, police, fire, utilities, administration. This is several years in a row of investment into both the services and the departments here at the city, and building off some revenue successes and efficiencies built into the city. For example, having a sewer plant that's not falling in on itself. Although, knock on wood, we don't know exactly what those expenses will look like at the new plant, but that's just one example, fixing water lines that don't leak as much, so on and so forth. So across all departments, besides some space in the recreation area, there was an increase in expenses generally expected, some increase for things like training, maintaining investment levels for equipment, especially in police and fire and utilities, increases potentially for salaries, as this is a negotiation year, and you guys will be later, council and labor unions will later be setting the salary expectations for the next 3 years. And I would call it, the accounting term would be incremental, but I think that sells itself short. But in accounting, what this means is we have taken the same numbers as 22, changed it for our needs, 23, changed it for our needs for 24, and looked for efficiencies, effectiveness, and investment opportunities. That's my high-level picture. But what I wonder is how you folks would like to know deeper into the departments, or other high-level questions, or how else can we help?
Are these figures, I'm sorry. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're good.
I thought you were finished.
No, you're good. I was waiting for somebody to cut me off, to take over.
Shut up, Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay, when I look at these figures, I can understand some of them being for the year, but other ones, they look like they're month or quarterly.
Do you have an example? Because I don't think I have it.
Sure do, yeah. It's marked everywhere. Just give me a minute. Go ahead, you talk.
Oh, thanks. I just had, a few different things that I marked that I just wanted to ask about. First was on the first page, the body cameras for 8,000. Didn't we just buy those?
So Axon has moved to a subscription-based service.
Oh, like everybody else in the world. Okay.
So at the beginning of next year, actually, I'll have to renegotiate our contract with Axon. So there could be some change. Will probably be increasing, if I had to guess. They're going to want more for storage costs for the data. And
Awesome. That's the best one out there. It
although
seems to be
with the plan we signed up for that I walked into, we're getting upgraded this year to the newest body cameras, even though we just got an upgrade like 6 months ago.
So that's just 8,000 basically will be our cost then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they break that down for I believe their plan option is 5 years.
Okay. So we're locked in for that 5 years. Okay. And then same on that first page, you got $10,000 for repairs and maintenance on vehicles. Is that sufficient? for all the vehicles that we have?
Seems to be so far.
Okay. Seems like a low number for what we have, 13 cruisers. I guess I charged too much.
Well, we'll keep everything going pretty local. Most of the maintenance is minor, so.
Gotcha. We've got
haven't
some
had
newer cruisers now than we had in the past.
3 of them are newer. I have all the years written down, but I didn't bring it with me. We have 2 that are kind of lemons. Kind of take up the bulk of the repairs, but otherwise, most of them are staying in pretty good shape. Everyone's taking pretty good care of them.
Gotcha. And then, on the second page, talk about payments on police cruisers and equipment, so I'm not sure how that all shakes out. How's that shape up with your proposed, replacement plan?
So I'm not positive on the specifics of those payments. I just showed up and those were my line items already. I don't know what the arrangement was when they bought those 3 new cruisers. I don't know, do we?
It was earlier than that.
Making payments on them, right?
It was earlier than that. It was 2020.
Oh, okay, so it was the cruisers before the newer ones.
And one of them, the USDA offered a one-time. In fact, I remember the representative sitting in here, not during a council meeting, during an administration hearing with them, and said this was the only time they approved it, and they were just going to see if we were test dummy. And essentially, it was a half loan, half grant arrangement. We paid for one cruiser that year with a grant. The other one was a loan of 10 years. 10 years, 7. I can't remember how many years. I have to get back with you on that one.
Seems a long time.
10 was a long time. I was like, 10's not right. 10's the street sweeper. But essentially, that's what it is. We're paying off that cruiser still. And I can get you the amortization to see which year it stops.
So does any of this take into account his proposed plan to replace cruisers as we go along?
Not in those line items. So we briefly talked with Chief yesterday, was it? And I said, one of the things I'll need is just better understanding from the council on the approach, whether council's moving that direction, and secondly, funding intentions. So there's really only 2 options: is capital improvement and the rescue plan of ARPA at the moment. General fund would require taking pretty significant funds, 60-ish thousand, right? From somewhere else. So essentially, we were kind of waiting on signals from the police and fire committee.
I think we're gonna discuss that next week in our committee.
Okay,
We're gonna discuss the options of leasing or buying.
gotcha.
$30,000 for the city manager why is that so little?
Oh, it's split. So if you see, if you're on page 5, it's at the top, the very top. And then almost at the bottom of the page, you'll see it's now also coming out of the 700 fund for the same amount. And on the back page, page 6, it's coming out of the 750 fund. So it's actually not 30, it's 90.
That's where it's split up amongst the 3 different funds.
And I actually got asked that question. I think Councilman Clement called and asked me the same question. Where did I come up with that figure? Shot in the dark. I also need intentions from council with the next city manager candidate, how much to set aside. I just shot high so that we understood we had space. And we can resolve that out as you guys continue work.
And one more for you, Chief. On the second page, under the K-9 section, do we have a plan going forward for?
Still just need to identify a canine officer. Okay. We got the money to get a dog and training. I just don't have anyone right now that stands out as the guy I want to do it. So it's kind of what the last open spot we have is supposed to be the canine handler. So
Better to,
sure,
Yeah,
I'm
direct
trying to look
candidate.
for the candidate.
okay, I've dominated everybody so far, so.
No, you're fine. So, the cruiser used for the K-9 is still in good shape and moving forward.
It's got a cracked windshield because before Officer Smith left, he hit a deer. And then I believe the fan that goes to the canine compartment has quit working. But other than that, it's in.
Overall, it's in good shape.
Who does our class work?
Either Pidcock or.
Sit down and give you the number for a vendor too. You don't have someone.
How about you? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, since we're in the police, any other questions on that department?
That's all I had.
You pretty much asked what I was gonna say.
Your grilling is over, Deb. I didn't think I was too bad.
I'm not looking to change a whole lot going into this year, so keep things the same and just keep moving forward like I got. We'll help off extra money this year due to not paying for stuff that I bought this year.
Yeah,
Is the plan.
that's about it, yeah.
Are you currently fully staffed?
Short one.
Short one.
Any candidates?
Not particularly. It's just hard to get a came in office.
Yep.
Especially right now with the way this thing's been going. Because it's a lot of commitment for someone.
Yep.
So that's a lot of concern. with me.
Have you got any of your officers from down at the college? Or I mean, do you check out with them?
About what?
Well, I mean, to see if any of them would be interested in coming here.
Yeah, that's where our newest officer, Quentin Klein, that's where he came from.
Okay,
He was employed over there first.
So we've had several come from over there, haven't we?
Most of the departments currently come from over there, actually.
That's, I mean, that's what they do, so. They train them.
One of the nice things I was gonna add about the police and fire budget, and I could have the exact number wrong, but, well, Harry would know, Devin might not, no offense, just because of the time here. But one of the nice things is because of management in the general fund, in general fiscal stability of the city, is that both of their departments, if you look at their operating supplies line, that's a line both of them use to invest in their department. Yeah, they'll get the day-to-day stuff if they need something in particular at that moment, but it's also an opportunity to invest in the department. And those numbers were less than half for both departments when I first started here. I believe it was 8,000 in Harry's before fire recovery, and around that for the police. And so this gives the opportunity another year for those departments to continue pretty strong investments in their stuff and people.
public defender. Is his salary 37 or is this again, I assume with everything else?
Well, I don't see a 37 line, but the public defender rate is actually set by the county. That's not something we
Maybe
can,
I'm looking at something,
Yeah, it's in there.
line item 100, 370, 110 says salary and wages.
yeah, that's that one's, oh, I see what's happening. These lines are too close. So that's public defender total is actually above that. And then that's the finance department. 100, 370. 370 is the finance department.
Okay, now wait a minute, you said, what is,
So if you look at the line right above that, 100, 345,
okay,
21, 21, 0.
It's a county public defender.
That's the actual public defender line.
Which there's nothing budgeted for.
Right, they pretty much, the state decides how much we pay quarterly. They don't give it to us ahead of time. In fact, we pay like a year behind. So, I mean, we could take a stab in the dark if you guys want.
Say, I mean, historical data, couldn't we go back and kind of estimate a little bit?
We can, it's a deep range.
But they set off like the caseload the public defenders have to take for.
Caseload, and it's not just Nelsonville, this is how I understand it, it's the county. Caseload of the county split by population, and then it's also based on how much the governor decides they're gonna pay that quarter. The state, I think. So there was several years where we paid nothing, 2 or 3 years since I've been here, where we paid nothing. We only just recently started paying again 6 months ago. We just paid our second invoice.
How much was that?
2,700. I want to say.
I know, just one of those things, it feels like we ought to have some there.
Yeah, we can definitely, we can put a shot in the dark there.
Even if it's $5,000 $5,000 or whatever it is, and then if we don't spend it, so much the better, right?
Right, right. If you call down to the county, it's one of their great frustrations. It's the county, the public defender cost. The state usually just decides on a whim at the last second, and
That's why you're the
we're all
state.
left to move around it.
So we're not gonna have an amount for that.
We can add one. I can take your guys' suggestion, add $5,000 there and
That was
just leave it as
number.
essentially a placeholder.
I said I felt like there should be something there. Whatever you guys think.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Not such a huge number where it's terribly hateful, but at least there's something there.
Right.
Well, since Chief Barber's here, do we want to move into the fire department?
Yep.
Okay,
Great. I didn't have many questions for Chief. Only thing I questioned was, and I'm sure that whatever it is, the first page where it's got the $300 broken out for each individual person.
Uniform allowance.
Is that uniform? Okay.
So the part-timers get 300 a year for uniform allowance, full-timers get.
I figured it was something like that. Other than that, yours is pretty straightforward.
It's pretty much the same, a couple of things that tweaked up a little bit, some of the benefit, insurance, I think we crept up a little bit on the operating supplies. A lot of it was just, payroll operational things, honestly, the benefit package.
How many folks do you have in there as far as the volunteers?
I have, right now, I've got 31 firefighters.
Okay, is that volunteers?
That's all the employees that I have, that I administer, there's, total was 31.
Okay,
I have positions right now for 4 full-time and 13 part-time.
okay. It's evidently been brought up. I'm sure he's gonna say something. But the people that are volunteers, is there a reason that they get W-2s?
Yes, because they are considered employees of the city and they get paid per call. So it's per response. They're called volunteers because they only get paid $10 per call. But it's,
Well, I just want to make sure that we have an answer.
yeah, that's why they have the W-2.
Just like piecework, basically,
Yeah, I mean,
for lack of a better term.
years ago, when I started as a volunteer, that $10 per call actually paid for fuel. It doesn't now, but
Thank you.
Is there any reason they were like ever left out of the staffing ordinance in the past? Was that ever discussed previously?
So the full-time and part-time are appointed by council. The volunteers have always been appointed, hired by the chief. It hasn't been brought up yet, but there has been discussion and the committee approved it to go to 20, 13 for the part-time. So since we're having a finance committee meeting, the only thing that changes, as far as my budget goes, would be the uniform allowance and a figure that we really couldn't come up with on BWC coverage. So it's minimal. It's not
Sorry, what was that second part?
BWC coverage.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's a minimal adjustment, and it's something that I can absorb in my budget.
So $2,100 in uniforms and whatever.
Well, yeah, that's it.
So we take like $5,000 total.
Well, it's just a uniform allowance, but I could,
I was thinking the BWC as well.
BWC,
I think it'd be less.
Derek can give me a figure on it, because it's waste built out.
But you think it could fit into your budget as is. I don't see any reason we shouldn't bring that forward then. It's obviously up to the rest of the committee, but.
The 20 part-time.
What's that?
The 20 part-time. is
I
that-
brought it back up and it was mentioned to go back to police and fire. and we're going back.
Okay. I don't know why it's already went to committee once.
Yeah, I think there's a little confusion, and a couple of questions by, committee member. And we're gonna have another police and fire meeting next Thursday.
I can assume which committee member that is.
And so if we could just bounce it back there, get it resolved, move it forward, and then we're good. Perfect. Then everybody's on the same page and nobody's, everybody understands.
Yep.
Perfect. So.
And your repairs, repair and maintenance budget, you think it's pretty good? I know you had to make the repair on
Yeah,
that.
we had, yeah, that was a crazy event, but yes, we've been able to keep up on
Fuel, that's good, 12,000, think good
that. So
enough.
far,
Yeah, as long as everything doesn't go haywire,
right? So
Yeah,
far, we're pretty-
ask Saudi Arabia.
right? Yeah. No kidding.
If any of your vehicles coming up on any major maintenance deadlines or milestones?
No, we do. No, we keep up on the maintenance on the oil changes and fluids and PM. I have a company that comes in and does preventive maintenance on the vehicles. Just keep up with that.
It was mentioned, so if I could just add that, we didn't really discuss it just because it's not actually suggesting a change to the department. But I mentioned to the committee in email, that the question was just asked by the auditors that W-2s and employees don't match the staffing ordinance as it pertains to the volunteers. So I don't actually suggest any change. If anything, $10 is pitiful. Just like Chief said, it's nothing. Not even really the gas to get in depending how far out of town they are, get in and get out. But I was gonna ask the committee tonight just to consider if there's a staffing ordinance change that we would make them match.
Yeah.
Just make apples to apples.
Yeah.
That was it.
And I think the original charter, allows for 21 volunteer positions for the city. So, and we'll never get that now. And when I get a good candidates in the door volunteer, we can transition into the state members.
Right.
So should we look at that $10 and maybe
Say, yeah,
reconsider that?
as finance, I wouldn't be against bumping that up. You know, just the cost of everything in the world right now, but probably have to go back to finance as well, or to police and fire.
Yeah, let's put that on for the.
How often do you even have anyone come in on volunteerships?
So anytime we have an on-call, well, the
Is
volunteers,
that where they usually come in as the all-calls?
the way it's set up, the volunteers, the pay is so low, there's so few, they can respond to any call. We can even pull historical records, we can pull payroll records, actually.
That's gonna be my question. What do
From
we spend
Taylor's
on
office,
volunteers?
and you'll see how minimal, the volunteer compensation actually is for a year's.
Some are very active and some come, I'd say, like twice, 3 times a year.
Right.
What do other departments pay their volunteers?
It's hit and miss, you
It's all
know,
over.
some, there's some departments that have paid on call volunteer firefighters that are paid for that call on the hour. There's some that are compensated what we make. It's, or what my volunteers here make. There's no common number. There's no common equation. Some departments are just strictly volunteer and, the money pays for their BWC coverage. It's kind of unique because we're a city and we're a combination department still.
You have an easy way to reach out to those guys. You probably do, I'm sure, being their volunteers. Maybe just ask them, what would raise your response rate?
Right.
You know, obviously, we can't break the bank, but
Right. Yeah.
what
Are there
would be
any-
a good incentive?
I've never got a chance to ask you this, but I just thought of it. Are there any considerations like, how do I explain it? Like, there's folks either on a public sector pension or social security, like, are there any ceilings that folks would not want to hit? I'm trying to think of like a part-time, like if a person's on social security, they work part-time. This just came up recently.
Mhm.
Somebody wanted to run for city council. They needed the pay to be donated because they were at their income ceiling because of their benefits. Is there
Well,
anything like in the volunteer world that would?
The only thing I can say for sure on that one is if we had an individual in that position, they would not be a firefighter in Nelsonville.
Yeah.
Because they have to perform the task physically.
Yeah,
They still have to be certified, keep up with certifications and continual training.
right.
So like,
Well, I was just thinking like, maybe not specific to social security, but I didn't know if there was some other HR related issue that they could get tangled in that's
none,
why they volunteer instead of.
right. None that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing that's ever came across the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association notes or anything, or the emails that I get.
That makes sense. I just would hate, because we did that once. I'm thinking about the pension specifically.
Right.
We did a change in good faith, and all we ended up doing was causing
Nancy, I have a question.
ourselves a lot of work.
I just, you brought in the council when you said that. And I know for one, the stipend is killing me on my insurance. So why can't you take that money and give it to somebody?
It's a good question. So this question came up. It wasn't from you, just for the record, it was a different person who wanted to run. And I called 3 other auditors in the area. In fact, one of them I talked about the volunteer issue too. And everybody was really clear that you have to make the payment. They have to be on payroll. You have to show the payment was made. The person can donate it back if the pension will respect that kind of thing. Like we'll say, I can see you gave it back and you didn't keep it. But as far as human resources and workers' compensation liability, yeah, we have to actually issue that payment.
That's what they did to me when I was in school board. I donated mine back for the athletic department, and yeah, I still got my W-2.
Yeah. Yeah.
No good deed goes unpunished.
I have a question, Chief. So there's been discussion about possibly adding a bay to the building and maybe a double decker trailer.
So right now, we keep running into roadblocks. The first contractor I talked to, after a few weeks, finally got back with me after we met and told me that they were just too busy because construction companies now are getting very inundated with projects. So they look at this project as being very small potatoes, and so far they haven't wanted to hop on it. I did talk to another company, put some plans together, because the first step in this would be me getting a plan together and letting council know, hey, this is about what this is going to cost. And the last company I talked to yesterday, they were wanting $4,500 just for plans. So that's a little bit of a financial roadblock. I don't want to spend $4,500 just for plans, nothing comes to fruition. I feel like that's a waste of money. So I've got voicemails out to 3 different companies right now, and I'm waiting for another company to meet with me so we can figure that out. So what we were talking about was just adding like a full bar construction on the side of the building to get the trucks and the rescue boats and stuff out of the bay. Here's out of them. We have to do things right too, so we have to have state approved plans and a permit through the state. We can't just add on our building and hope that it doesn't go unnoticed. So that's, first of all, it's not the right way to do it, and as an inspector, I couldn't let that happen. So I'm still working on numbers and trying to get something together so I could actually propose a plan to council. Right now, I don't have that yet. It's been one roadblock after another.
Consider sending maybe Michael Betts a message to see if he can't point you in the right direction.
Michael, I have not talked to Mike yet. I talked to about every other contractor, almost every contractor the city's used so far. And even a couple of contractors that are currently doing work in the city. And I thought I had a good bite. One company said, after a couple weeks, maybe at least one time to do it, he was actually drawing some stuff up for me. And then his recommendation, the phone call went pretty much this way. Well, I don't really work well with the state. Well, that's a red flag. Right?
Yeah, you're out.
So I'm still trying to get some plan together. That way I know what it costs. I know lands and buildings doesn't have a lot. So I don't know how, I don't know what this is going to cost. It's simple full bar construction with some bay doors on the side and one on the end of the boat and the truck.
Shouldn't be terribly costly, I would think.
So I'm still working on something. I don't have anything number-wise yet.
Get another one next Thursday, so hopefully come up with something by then.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief Barber?
Yes, sir.
They're all good up. All right. So where do you want to go next?
We can see what all we've got marked up. I guess we've all looked, see what catches our eye, right? Just kind of Pepper Taylor and
I'm ready.
here. Yeah.
Well, you want to jump to utility department?
Oh, you're getting this one before I do. Go ahead.
Any questions on,
What's the, oh, never mind, sorry. I was gonna ask, what line item are you starting at?
I'm really not just,
Okay.
There was discussion about possibly adding a seventh employee to the utility department. Has that been worked into the budget to see what it looks like?
So it has, those numbers reflect that now. If council decides against, we can change that. But I know when I discussed with Jason, his, vision and needs for 24, that was the first thing he mentioned. And of course, he's been talking to you guys about it too. So, among some other upgrades, like on page 17, water loss reduction projects, trying to get our water loss down, beating these water leaks in these old lines, and also some equipment upgrades. Those are the things he mentioned.
So as the utility department, is that seventh employee gone through that committee yet?
I don't know.
I don't think so. So should we kick that there next week? Okay, let's do that. Then we can revisit it on our next finance meeting.
One thing I wanted to ask, we've got the code enforcement in there, and I've mentioned that to you before. Do we have room to add a second part-time code enforcement person?
So we did try to make that work. The code enforcement part of the city manager, secretary, and code enforcement lines actually comes straight out of the general fund. So to add another position, I mean, we could have taken a stab in the dark, but just based off my estimates of roughly 30 hours a week, that was not in the general fund. We can hash out what we'd like and instead kind of question, but it's just a different calculus in the general fund than, say, the sewer fund. The general fund, we budget to maximize our police and fire folks particularly. I don't know if you had any ideas. We didn't talk before today, so.
No, I want to
Okay.
see where you were with it, and that way I can start my brain between now and next Thursday.
Yeah, that one was harder. Yeah, that one was harder.
I know it's one of the things that we really need to address is our housing stock, and having the second person out there doing that, I think would make a big difference.
It's not impossible by any means. It's just, it's not in our first draft.
Right.
It's really the best way to frame that.
Right, which is why we're here.
What about just making him full-time?
I mean, we could run those numbers. I didn't run those, because that wasn't an idea that had come up. But if the committee wants to see that, I could definitely get that for you.
We have to gentlemen, how they.
Well, yeah, look at it either way, I don't have an
Yeah.
issue there.
Let's run the,
We'll have some similar questions, obviously, as far as prioritization in the general fund. But specifically, we hadn't run that, so.
Yeah, we can look at it both ways, 2 part-time or 1 full-time, and see what the difference is. Go from there.
so the rental registration fee that's collected, which this year is just right about 26,000. That's in its own separate line, correct? Or is that going to general?
It goes in the general fund, but it's got its own line in there on the revenue side.
And that is designated for code, correct? And there's still not room to consider a second part-time person.
I know.
Okay,
I mean, there is, it's just a question of give and take.
right.
So we were able to fill this first draft out. So this would be the point where, if the committee says, actually, we don't like this, I want you to move 50,000 out of these priorities to make this happen. That's kind of the stage we're at here.
Okay,
So I answered that question quick with a hard no. That's not really true. We can make the priorities of council happen. It's just a matter of choices.
so potentially also there's uncollected money from the rental registration fee. Do we know where we stand on that possibility? That there's still money out there that landlords did not register and
That's
pay
the
the fee?
question, how many registered versus how many we think are out there? Do you know how many registrations we had put in this year?
I don't know the number of registrations. I know we're on track for around 22 or 23,000. I believe we discussed, which is definitely shorter than original expectations when that fee was passed, by almost 10,000.
$30, is that what it is?
30.
Are you taking any,
766, sorry,
oh, sorry.
I apologize, go ahead. No, I said,
Are you taking any steps to haul these people in, so to speak, on these late fees? Because I don't think before it was ever done.
For the rental registration, not in my office, that'd be a code enforcement question. On what the plan is.
Have you guys ever sent him to iWorks training? I don't know who to ask about this.
No,
No, he's. But that would
I'm
definitely.
still learning iWorks. I'm still figuring out iWorks myself, so.
Okay, well, it would definitely help him. You know,
Did you do an iWorks training when you were helping out a little bit?
Becky showed me how to do it, and
Okay.
that's the way I went.
Was it like a web page based thing, you just follow along kind of?
Yes, but you can find out so much information on it. I mean, it's just amazing.
Okay, I'll try and get that, I'll try to figure out, get it hooked up.
I wonder if they don't have a rep or somebody like that, like people come down to.
I don't know how that's set up exactly.
But if he's learning. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. I said, if he's training for it, why couldn't you go into the general fund and get some more money? Of course, he may not want to do it, and then have him train the code officer, because the mayor only needs help.
Might be something for our new city manager coming in as well too. How much do you use iWorks as a police chief?
Almost not all.
Okay.
It's primarily only used for leak stuff.
That'd be my suggestion then. Maybe our new city manager, get them up to speed on it, and then, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be great for him to have access to it and how to use it and everything, because you're able to pull a lot of reports and see the permits. Well, he'll need it anyway, because he has to sign permits and stuff.
Train both at the same time.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry.
Okay, that's what we're supposed to do, isn't it?
Okay, any other questions on code enforcement?
Yes, sir.
All right. I have a question on the, so should we go to street department next?
Let's do it.
All right.
There's the 200 line. For you guys, page 10. I don't think yours are numbered. That's, I
Yeah,
can give you a numbered one if you need.
there we go. Thank you.
So if I can start, on these street funds, there's gonna be lots of movement. These have been pretty sleepy funds, 5 years, 10 years ago. Lots of movement this year, 150,000 in road repair, 150 in 2024 as well. That's the largest amount ever appropriated for paving in Nelsonville. There are probably some paving experts in town who say that's crazy. I'd have to agree, but we're getting there. And then you guys are gonna see serious movement, for example, the 130 fund. That's where the Washington Street project is gonna operate out of. And, oh, it's not on here yet because we haven't created it. That's on the agenda tonight, to create a street project fund for Canal and Burr Oak. And it's required by the state and feds for them to pay for our project. So, and then we will be moving 350,000 with your approval from those street funds, because that is our match on those projects. Y'all agreed to that like a year or two ago, so.
All right, perfect.
We've got to go through the motions, but that was long ago agreed to. So that's kind of the high level of the street funds. They're changing and growing, and a lot of investment in 24.
So where do we stand with, road salt?
So this is a good question. I just talked with Jason. You know, he's been in contact with what's called Compass Minerals, who is the state bid for salt. We were fortunate, everybody please knock on wood. We were fortunate the last winter was one spell of snow and then not much salt usage the rest of it. So when I asked him, I said, you know, is this gonna be, what kind of range? How much do we have to fill up that barn back there? Fortunately, there's still a significant amount. So there's budgeted 40,000, you'll see. And I'm just looking for the line, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess.
Somewhere here, page 11, 230, 180,
Oh, there it
21,
is.
600. And he expected that would be sufficient, but I hate to jinx it in saying so.
How much did we budget last year?
35,
Did we use it all?
we did not.
We
We
did
did not, that's right.
not.
Yeah.
Equipment wise, we're good for the street department. Maybe that's a question we can run by Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. We went through this budget and his investment, his current capital plan is a dump truck, a backhoe, and another vehicle to replace an aging truck. That's his kind of 1 to 3 year plan. And that's all built into here. So
Okay, great.
this actually started at 23, started this year. So it's all built into his expectations.
How long is our loan on the street sweeper?
10 years.
That's like a couple years old.
It's not very old.
So we got about,
Should be a lot older for how much it's broken.
For real.
is it operating now?
It has been, yeah.
And if you want heartburn, ask me how long the Jefferson Street project will still be paying on there.
Hey Taylor, how long will we pay on the Jefferson Street?
22 more years.
22 more years.
22. That's true, 22.
How much a year?
28,000. And believe it or
Is
not,
there interest in figuring into that too, or is it no?
you know, I don't know if most of our loans are interest-free, fortunately. But I will tell you that the feds, if I remember right, the feds paid 60% of that project. So we didn't even waste the most money on that project. Back when, that was what, 2010? That was happened?
Yeah. Should have been.
Wow. So, anyhow, take your members all tonight.
Okay, any other questions on street department?
Yes, sir.
And I know Jason told you folks he's already working on a 24 paving plan. He'd like to put them together, put it out to bid to create efficiencies and savings. And I think he said the timeline on that was February or March. By February or March.
Okay. Where do we go next?
I was just gonna ask about the pool, the 15,000 for chemicals at the pool. Is that sufficient compared to what we paid this year?
Yes. Yes. Pool chemicals are another sore spot. No fault of our pool or our staff. The company who sells us the pool chemicals, we're at like 200 and some % increase in price over 3 years. So that number has gone up exceptionally dramatically. Pool chemicals have gone up across the country, but I think the number is like 60%. So where we're getting the rest of the 150% or something for the city, I don't know. I sent out a message to Logan, Athens, and I believe Chillicothe about their pool chemical expenses a few weeks ago, and we've been sharing invoices, comparing companies. Fortunately, I found some companies who also provide the same items from them. But I will tell you, it was a shared grief, what's the word, complaint, that pool chemicals have gone up so much. And I will say ours was the fastest growing though, by far.
So is there any reason why we can't switch to new supply?
My understanding is there's no reason we couldn't.
This is gonna sound stupid, but I want to ask anyway. Is there any kind of like co-op for municipalities or anything like that where they can buy things like pool chemicals or other supplies that are needed for cities, things like that? Just try to
We buy
increase
our,
the purchasing power.
we buy our chemicals for the water plant through a state bid process. I don't know. It'd have to be
Or pool
asked
chemicals or
around
state
our
bid.
pool too.
The problem is they got stuff for everything. Stupid.
Mhm. That would be nice.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
could probably find, there's probably a way you can put.
So hopefully, I gave you a soft answer there because their number for a yearly increase, 70%, 80%, it's
Sounds
been
like
wild.
we need to shop around, that's for sure.
Yes.
In the past, there was, on the concession building, there was discussion about the roof repair. And that's not been done yet, correct?
Were they planning on, is that something they were planning on doing this year? If they had money or?
It's been discussed. I don't think it's actually been slotted into the plan.
Is it leaking, I assume, or what's going on?
I don't think it is actually, but it is quite aged. I think we had a few folks look at it last year and say you're getting pretty
that's
close to the end of the
what I
life
thought.
cycle.
There had been some interest in replacing that.
If the next city manager were to do so, yeah, they'd have to go through the process again and quote,
Okay,
get it looked at.
let's move it to that then.
On the next page, there is a line on page 13 for pool repairs at 60,000. That's within the range of what we spent this year. Unfortunately, for like years, they were spending nothing on pool repairs, back long before any of us were here. So that hopefully the council can see the value in continuing the repairs, continuing the maintenance, keeping it from getting worse, and keeping that thing open for the community and our kids and our seniors and everybody. Really.
I had asked for, maybe we can have it by next committee meeting, a year-end report on the pool performance for this year.
I can give you a full breakdown, revenues and expenses.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And it's all good stuff.
Okay, any other questions on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so knock the recreation fund out. The current budget split, general's 90, capital is 8, and rec is 2.
Income tax, yep.
Yep, income tax split. Okay.
So I had a question in the 600 fund, the 50,000 for public square upgrades.
Yeah,
I'm not against it, I just wondered what it was.
it's just the wrong name. So it's actually for sidewalk. It's called our mobility corridor. So Mr. Betts put on my radar that the city council and the city manager was approved several years ago for a sidewalk upgrade from the square to Kroger.
I remember that.
I can't remember if it's Chestnut or Poplar. I'm not sure you'd have to ask.
Chestnut for some reason, but I could be wrong.
So our local match, at least in the first phase was 50,000. So folks will see that work. That is actually the sidewalk upgrade project. Specifically called the mobility corridor.
You might want to name it specific to the mobility corridor, since there might be some other sidewalk projects.
That's true. Yeah, I just left an old name on this spreadsheet. That was actually in my notes to talk about.
Okay. Any other questions on Where to go next?
I'm headed over to sewer.
Yep. Okay,
I'll let you ask that one, because you're the one that pointed it out to me first, so I'll not steal your thunder.
I'll go ahead.
No, looking in the 700 fund, plant improvements for $80,000. I'm sorry, I'm looking wrong, that's water, I apologize,
That's all right.
sorry.
Water.
I'll make
Yes.
myself look silly.
That's the water plant.
Yeah, I was looking at sewer, and so was Greg.
Oh.
Yeah, where we at?
Well, if it was for the sewer plant, I would have questions too. $22 million plant and it needs
Yeah,
upgrades in the first
It
month.
says sewer collection improvements, so I don't know if that means the plant specifically or other infrastructure.
It's other infrastructure. It's the lines and lift stations. Yep. So some of the things they're working on that Jason mentioned, well, some of this they've done, some of it they're working on. Some of the lift stations have old electrical work. Totally outside of my league on some of these terms, but I know they're upgrading panels. You have to ask the experts on what exactly that means, but essentially our lift stations some of them are old, they break too much. And one of them, I remember, the repair company we prefer to use at that location said they didn't want to work on it anymore until the electrical was upgraded. And that was an example of a project this year. It was pretty costly, but needed, because we needed to keep the poo flowing. And that's what that is. Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you.
so have we made the first payment on the new plant yet?
We have.
We have?
Yeah.
How much is that?
We made a combined payment. I think I promised you at the last finance, I'd have that exact number, didn't I? Somebody. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe it's a different conversation. We're gonna say we did. You should. You should. So I know the payment was over 260,000 this year. But that was a combined payment, both for construction as well as the purchase of the Bookville sewer system, as well as the upgrades in phase one, which included the Chestnut Street sewer line and a couple lift stations. But this year with the project, this year meaning 24, so next year, with the project completely finished, we will come up just short of a $400,000.
Okay, that's the number I see here.
We usually will round that off just in case. What happens is the USDA will often calculate the interest at the time of payment. So believe it or not, you're gonna say, how could this happen? You're gonna say, Taylor, how could the feds do this? Or maybe you won't. Maybe you have such low faith in the feds that you already understand this could happen. But if the USDA says they're gonna take the payment on July 1st, but say there's an administrative, they just don't, because they ACH the money. We don't write a check. They draw off of our account, which is required by law. Say they forget, they do it 2 months later, they recalculate the interest, and it's a different payment amount. So, because of the new interest. So that actually happened twice this year with the USDA. They definitely apologized. I said, that's fine. You just get your money and let's close this matter. So we like to, I guess what I'm saying is we like to round that just in case there's any
Right.
mix up just like that.
And we're looking at a sewer rate increase starting in January, correct? Or
That's-
5%?
That's what the project administrators have recommended to you guys. The council will have to make that choice.
We haven't done that yet,
I don't believe so, no.
but
Yeah,
we were
there's-
looking at,
There was a schedule set out once, this was all done, so this has all been kind of preordained.
and potentially that may be the last rate increase.
It's the last on the financial projection. So what RCAP, who provided that, who did the final edit on that projection, they suggested the council just move to an inflation-based increase after this upcoming year.
Okay.
You get into a pretty bad spiral when cities do what we did previously, where there's just no action for 10 years. And then you're playing catch up, which really doesn't mean we're playing catch up. It means the citizens are playing catch up. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
On this rate increase, are we gonna warn the citizens about this?
I think we already have that it's coming.
Okay, but Okay, so it's just a warning.
Well,
And the only reason I'm asking is because I've had people come up to me about it, and I didn't want to get any kind of an answer because I wasn't quite sure.
so utility committee will have to look at that, correct?
And unless maybe it's something, once we pass it, could we put it on their invoice, letting them know that, next year your rate will go to whatever it'll be? Should be pretty easy program that, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send it out the bills.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the sewer?
Yes, sir.
How much longer would the committee like to go?
I've pretty much had my questions answered, so.
Okay.
I did want to ask one thing. Neil Summers had presented at the meeting about the, I know the small potatoes compared to the millions we're talking about, with the CAT tutoring project.
Yeah.
Could we have that built into where we could absorb that if we decided to do that?
We could, we just need an amount.
I think it was 2,000 is what he was talking about.
Yeah, I,
Wasn't an absorbent amount.
as somebody whose flower beds suffer from the neighborhood cats terribly, I smell it every time it rains or I water them. Yeah, it was right.
And I have two cats.
And I went, and I have a cat. I have a cat inside.
No, mine are pets.
There you go.
Nancy, you have a significant number of cats in there.
Oh my gosh.
Well, but they're both, if you're, that's what I think you're thinking of, all of those are neutered or whatever you do to
Yeah.
them. They take them and done.
That's my long way of saying, man, please, could we do something about the stray cats?
Yep, there's plans. We just need to allocate money for it, so.
Can't touch my plant beds without gloves. It's terrible.
So right before the meeting, I was asked about, possible donation to the dog park. We kicked that over to committee and,
Yeah, it should go to Parks and Rec.
yeah,
Who's on this dog park committee anyway? I tried to find out
I think they
forever.
were just trying to reform.
Yeah,
That's all they
it was,
advertised.
they had an official committee for a while,
Right.
and then the plan kind of teetered off at the beginning of the year, and now they're trying to come back. They have a meeting here at council chambers Thursday at 6.
Is it more than just one or two people?
I believe there's a handful of them now. There's at least Dan Pfeiffer, who does all the city news releases and that kind of thing. And some of the, I believe, one of the teachers from the high school is wanting to get involved, so.
That's good. Thanks.
We won't be able to start committee meetings until later than on Thursday.
Thursday isn't tomorrow.
Next Thursday. Sorry.
Tomorrow they're having a meeting.
okay.
This is a long day.
Devin, don't mess with me. Okay?
Yeah.
No, Mr. Chairman, I had nothing further.
Yes.
Do you have some, other items?
We kind of touched on them. I just need the committee to just give me the up or down, the thumbs up or down. The one was the setting up a street project fund and transferring the local match. We'll need an ordinance to do that.
Okay.
It'll just be the next series in the street funds. I think it will be 225 or 222 or something like that. And then transfer from the 200 and 230 funds, which, full disclosure, the city has been planning for 3 or 4 years now. So it's not taking away from any other projects. We've been building for this Canal Street resurfacing.
I have no issue creating that.
No, I'm fine with that.
Since we already touched on it and Chief threw out a number, 21 volunteers. Is the committee okay with adding the 21 volunteer number to?
It was 20, wasn't it, too?
No, he's not talking about part-time, he's talking about the charter for the city of Nelsonville is set up for 21 or 23 volunteer firefighters. I'd have to go back and look, because that's a number that was set up years ago.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
But-
What were you wanting to change it to?
Well, he's talking about something different.
Okay,
The part-time staffing already went to committee to go from 13 to 20.
that's right, yeah, we were going to,
And for some reason, it's gonna go back to committee now.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense. It's already approved.
we'll get it taken care of. Yeah, okay, so that'll go back to the committee.
See,
Actually, when that circle,
what they were talking about was adding the volunteers to the staffing ordinance, just so that it's on paper somewhere other than the charter.
Okay. Well, that way, so we can make sure it's appropriate to W-2 them and cover their benefits. And
Police and fire can handle that, that's been our thing.
I was gonna say, if you guys are having another committee week, maybe we could complete the circle and just one ordinance out with both changes.
A week from tomorrow,
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect.
I'll verify that charter reading for this one.
And then the last thing was, we have just one then and now, which was also brought up, but in a different way. It's for iWork software. Couldn't tell you where these invoices were going. They were going to somebody else's inboxes besides the finance office. And they reached out to us, and I said, we'd be happy to pay those. Please send them to us in the future first. So fortunately, compared to the last meeting, you guys had what, 8 or 9 to process? And just as I predicted, as we discussed, those numbers would go down as the process improves. So there's just the one for iWork. That'll need the committee and the council.
How often do you get the instance where a bill gets sent somewhere besides the finance office?
Not too often, not too often.
There's
I was
probably,
gonna be,
there's probably going to the old administration, so you know, it's email.
I think they were. We found the paper, Judy actually,
Because I saw them on, I work today, there's a section where there's digital on there as well. So I don't know if someone was getting on there before.
I'm not sure.
Digital
The
invoices.
administration, code enforcement, all that stuff is the email that,
Yeah.
she administered that stuff. But now that Rita's not here, I'm sure that.
Yeah, that's probably what the issue is.
yeah. To be honest, the paper version was found by, the 2 invoices were physically, found by one of my staff members just on the desk over there. So I know we got one skeptic in the audience, but it's, that's actually where they were found. And, we'd love to get them paid, and, told them, send them to us first. We get it done.
Sounds good to me.
What's the bill for that, sir?
So the bills are actually for code, comma, utility assets, and text my gov capability. And all put together, it's at $7,500.
Thank you.
Now, you will see it then now, fire department for that 2022 purchase of the AED equipment. Remember?
For the grant?
No.
Oh,
For the AED peripherals that were ordered in April of 22, but they went on a national back order. So they sent me an email, 2 weeks ago, I think?
gotcha.
I said, hey, your order's ready. You still want it? Good. So yes, send the equipment.
That
That will be
definitely,
it. We're talking like $236.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking, I was like, it's
very-
not over 3,000,
No,
right?
it's very small.
Okay.
You'll see it come across your desk.
Yeah, you won't need it now for that,
We just don't need approval up until 3,000, approval from you guys. But that's a great example. That's a great example that sometimes things just happen. The company can't provide it, the invoice comes, what'd you say, April 2022?
Yes.
We'll be paying it a year and a half after purchase order.
So what happened was I canceled the encumbrance. Okay, I canceled the purchase order out. Then, all this time goes by and then they send me the email, hey, this is ready for delivery now. So I had to restart the process. So the original order and invoice and kind of stuff's gonna have very much before that date.
Not gonna say no to that, though.
Right.
Like, what should we have? Go on, bring it.
Anything else?
The last thing was, if the committee wanted to discuss the street levy schedule in 24, if you'd like to begin the legislation for the 24 primary for the street levy renewal.
So this is renewal at the same rate that it is now.
It is the same rate. It's 2 mills. I couldn't tell you the first year it passed. They've both been around for a while. And council's only 2 primary decisions are to forward it onto the voters or not, which, considering the state, the need for street repair, hopefully that will be the case. The second and primary decision is whether it's a replacement or a renewal. So Jill Davidson, formerly Jill Thompson, the county auditor, actually suggested to the council 3 years ago now that council uses the replacement model for levies because they were using the property values on renewals from the 1990s. So when you renew, the property value is frozen on that tax, not the other taxes, just our levy. Replacement updates those. So Jill Thompson mentioned it over the phone to me. She said, hopefully she doesn't mind, I named her with the camera on. She said, hey, it was the rec levy at the time. She said that's still using some very old values, and that's why it brings in less money for the city.
Could you project out what the numbers would be for what we have now versus what it would be?
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, let's put that to our next meeting. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Anything else from the committee? Okay.
Nothing else.
So we're looking to meet again on the 28th, next Thursday. And we're gonna have stack committees that night, and finance will be last. And you will update and have basically the second draft of the budget with everything we discussed tonight. And if all goes well, we can recommend to move the budget on to full council. Okay. Mr. Sherman, do you have any questions? Okay. Then we will adjourn the meeting at 8:07.